Hello and welcome to Dragon Puppet. My name is Thomas and today we are doing a retro review of the second edition Angels of Death Codex from 1996. Alright, so let's get straight into it. This is the Angels of Death Codex from 1996, right in the middle of second edition. I didn't start playing 40k until the late 90s and early 2000s, so this was just a little before my time, but it's the sort of era which I enjoy the most thematically and visually. This kind of artwork is just peak 40k as far as I'm concerned. In fact, it's right here on my mat, a great piece of artwork by Jeff Taylor. And as a Blood Angel player too, this is just perfect. In fact, my favorite piece of artwork is a piece of artwork from this era. I'll put it up on the screen. It's a really cool Blood Angel piece. I just love it. I love the bright colors, the kind of stylized visuals. There's always been, and there always will be, lots of skulls in 40k, but I feel like this era is the most skullified era. This chaplain, I mean, chaplains of course are like super scully anyway, but look how many skulls are right here. Also, this style of artwork I love is how it always into the background, the huge numbers of soldiers fighting kind of just fade into the background. It's just like tens of thousands of them, and I think it looks great. Anyway, this is the Angels of Death Codex. It's the only joint codex, Blood Angels and Dark Angels. Obviously they're linked by the word angels in their title, but also because both chapters have like a really dark secret which they do not want to get out. So starting off, we have this lovely diorama of a Dark Angels monastery, which you can see in the Warhammer World exhibition in Nottingham by Mike McVeigh. The other thing about this kind of old school era that I love is all this stuff is just made with like card and plastic card and pipes, and it just looks amazing. It's not, you know, this is before there was all this scenery from Games Workshop that came out on these sprues, this beautifully sculpted scenery. If you wanted to do scenery, it was made out of card and spare bits. And I remember seeing these in White Dwarf when I was younger and just thinking this scenery looked great. And I think it still looks great. So, getting into the actual book. Classic introduction. Most of this book is in black and white. There's a color section in the middle, which is the way that most codexes were at the time. Yeah, this is pretty standard here. The introduction, it just kind of gives you a brief bit of intro into the two chapters and some little kind of hints and an introduction into how to collect them or why you might collect them. Yeah, so straight into it, we have, this starts off with lots of lore and fluff about the Space Marines. We have the Horus Heresy sort of quick intro here about what happened, which, you know, holds up today. This is back in 1996. They'd got lots of the key stuff in place, although even at this stage, the kind of lore for the particular chapters wasn't super in depth. I think as far as, this is the first book which went into depth about the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels. And you've got a little list of successor chapters there for the different other chapters, which is interesting. This is a great bit of fluffy. You've got artwork here which depicts the Horus Heresy, and you've got loads of fluff about the armor variants and the different types of armor and what the difference was between the armor and how it kind of got upgraded over time. Really interesting stuff, like a double page spread. It's just about power armor. And for someone like me who loves the lore, these old books are great because they are just chock-a-block with it, and it's not like all stylized up, it's just dense lore, and I am here for it. Then we have the Dark Angels lore section. So you've got introduction. It's got a little bit here about the Primarchs in general and, you know, what happened to the Primarchs in their incubation capsules. And then it talks about what happened specifically to Lionel Johnson in Caliban and the Order and stuff, which is in the Horus Heresy novels. You know, it's explored a lot in Descent of Angels. Although this section here, really interesting. It's a little kind of tiny narrative, little short story about the moment that Luther found the lion in the woods of Caliban for the first time, which is kind of mentioned in passing in the Horus Heresy novels, but we don't see it happen in the Horus Heresy novels, whereas right here we've got it. It's the moment that this wild boy kind of comes across this hunting party in the forest, and he's almost cut down by them, but then Luther decides to put down his gun and approach the boy. And it's really cool. It's right here. Just extra lore that you would not find in the, you know, the Horus Heresy novels, but it's right here in the Codex from 1996. Yeah, and the lore just carries on. You've got the Emperor reaching Caliban, and you've got the fall of Caliban and all the stuff that happens. So this is the big bit where they talk about the big secret. The little section about the rock there and how it happened. You got some information about today, and then it goes through all this stuff, and then you have the final secret So you got, this is the thing about the Dark Angels, is it's like secret upon secret. So the first secret is the fact that half the Legion turned traitor in the first place. And then you've got the even more secret, which is that Luther is imprisoned deep inside the rock, which only a few Dark Angels know. It's like this, and as far as they're concerned, that is the biggest, baddest secret that the Dark Angels have. But there is even one more secret, which is so secret at the time that only the Emperor himself knew the truth, which is that Lionel Johnson is also buried even deeper in the rock. They kind of changed the lore a little bit over the years, and obviously at this point in the game, the Lion is back. That secret is kind of out, and there's a whole story about how that all happened. But in 1996, the biggest, baddest secret was that the Lion is asleep in the depth of the rock, and nobody knew except for the Emperor, which is really cool. It's like the layers of secrets. Everyone thinks that they know all the secrets, and then there's one person above them that knows there's more secrets. And then you have this another little short story. They did this a lot back in the old codexes, where they'd have these like a paragraph or two, just kind of a little bit of narrative fluff. And what we've got here is an interrogator chaplain interrogating a fallen Dark Angel and trying to get him to repent, which of course he fails to do, but really cool. And then a great bit of artwork there, which we see again later on. And then we have the Blood Angels, who are my favorite chapter, my favorite Legion. But I do have a lot of love for the Dark Angels too. I think they're all great. There's no Legion which I am disinterested in, but Blood Angels are my favorite. Amazing piece of John Blanche artwork there of Tycho, his half mask. So like the Dark Angel section, we have this bit here which talks about what the planet Baal, what would become the Blood Angel homeworld, what it was like before Sanguinius arrived. And then you've got the coming of Sanguinius and how that changed and what exactly happened. And it goes on to talk about the flaw, which is of course the Blood Angels' big bad secret, is they have this genetic flaw which, leads to pretty bad things, the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. So it talks about the Black Rage and stuff here, and then you've got this section where we talk about the kind of themes of the Blood Angels and what happened to the Blood Angels after Sanguinius fell at the end of the Horus Heresy, and how it changed them, and it goes into more depth about the Death Company and the Red Thirst. And here we have another little story about the Blood Angels. This one is about some guardsmen which are rescued by Blood Angels, and the kind of horror that they feel when they see the Blood Angels go to work and the kind of slaughter, and they become very terrified of the Blood Angels. And right at the end, when the battle is over and the guardsmen are shaking in their boots at the horror they've just witnessed, the Blood Angel comes over and leans down to the guardsman, who is thinking it's all over and he's about to get killed by this rabid Space Marine. The Space Marine just screams "Praise be to the Emperor" in his face and then runs off, which is very funny. And then we get into the rules section. Beginning with, it just gives you the rules for generic Space Marines, Space Marine Librarians, Tech Marines, Servitors, all stuff like that. So, because obviously all these units you can play in a Blood Angel army. So you get a little bit of fluff for each unit, and then you get their stats. Like I say, this is 2nd edition, so some of the stuff here is a bit interesting. Here you have the Death Company. Cool little thing you have here on the Death Company is the 1+1 wounds, which is explained here, but basically what it means is they have a temporary wound, an additional temporary wound during the battle, which disappears at the end of the battle. So if a Death Company only has 1 wound remaining at the end of the battle, then he dies, which is interesting. It would affect the victory points, because those units might not exist at the end of the battle when you're counting up your victory points, but it means in the battle they are able to last a little bit longer, which is really interesting. Yeah, more stuff here. You got the Raven Wing and the Death Wing, which is just the specific companies within the Dark Angels. And then we get on to the color section, which is the best bit. It's the bit we all flick to, with all the heavy metal paint schemes. Painting's come a long way in the last few years, but these still look amazing, especially considering the quality of the paints they had back then. They've got shading and blending on here, and they just look amazing. Yeah, so you've got a few Unforgiven, like the successor chapters of the Dark Angels, and then you've got some color schemes for the successor chapters of the Blood Angels. Oh, here we go. There's this amazing piece of artwork by Mark Gibbons. Love this old school art. Yeah, and then we have the chapter organization. And this is the thing that you don't see as much in the modern codexes. coming from someone who enjoys historic gaming and stuff like that, I find this stuff really interesting, like how the chapters are organized and the sort of command structure and stuff. So you've got this whole bit here about how it's organized and then the kind of layout. Then you've got some more beautiful miniatures. These models look great. Like the highlights on these tiny guys, they look great. They do look really cool. I'm tempted to paint up a few Primaris Space Marines in this style. It looks really cool. Good old heavy metal. Don't see enough of that anymore. And all the other thing I love about these old books is that all the characters will have their own banners. I really miss banners. You still do get a lot of banners in 40k, but not enough as far as I'm concerned. More symbols and logos and like iconography for organizing your Marines, which I absolutely love. Badges and shoulder pads and exactly what the symbols mean, and different banners for different characters, or just for even unnamed sergeants would have their own banner which showed which company and which squad they were, which I really like. More banners. This is something that I really love. This was an important mechanic in the 2nd edition. I think even for a while, I think even maybe up to 6th edition, maybe on later, somebody let me know. Dark Angels basically have these 3 sacred standards, which all give a slightly different buff depending on which one you use. So at the start of your battle, you would choose which sacred standard you're using, and it would affect how your army played, which is really cool. And I don't think that is in the current version of the Dark Angels. You got some Tech Marines here, which is really cool. Another interesting thing about the 2nd edition of Warhammer 40k is you needed a Tech Marine in your army if you wanted to play any vehicles. So anything bigger than a bike, you needed a Tech Marine in your army list, or you just couldn't bring tanks, which is pretty limiting. But also, I kind of like that. I really like Tech Marines just kind of fluff-wise. So the fact that they kind of force people to have Tech Marines is fine by me, because I think they look cool. More great banners. And some vehicles. These lovely old square bases on the Dreadnoughts, which looks so strange now. And the old school Razorbacks, which have been adopted as the Horus Heresy era chassis. And even Dreadnoughts with banners. I mean, come on. The golden age for banners. And now on to the Blood Angels. Love this artwork. I love this. I don't know what about this style that I love so much, but it is great. And here we go, straight into more organization, which is right up my street. As you can tell, I love this book. I love this era of 40k. This book is my favorite era with my favorite chapter, and it's just perfect. I love this book. But yeah, so you've got a big section here about the chapter organization, and then it goes into the specifics of how many of what is in each company and the iconography for each company. And then you've got the Death Company as a separate thing. And then the same as with the Dark Angel section, we just got a bunch of Marines, the kind of examples of how that would look based on what we just saw here, how that look on the tabletop. And again, they look great. I love these old school grass bases, which was just sand, painted green, dry brushed yellow. The idea that all these battles in the grimdark future are just happening on nicely mown lawns is very amusing. All these old school heavy weapons, the big shoulder mounted heavy weapons, which are now considered to be like Heresy era, Great Crusade era heavy weapons. More lovely iconography and banners. Again, even sergeants, squad leaders getting their own banners, which is great. And they have them here dead flat so that you could photocopy them and cut them out and attach them. Beautiful company standards. Oh, I love these, they look so good. Look at this, it looks great. We need more banners, people. Here he is, Captain Tycho, back before he succumbed to the Black Rage. And then we have the Death Company with a lovely Death Company chaplain with a lovely banner. And a little bit here about the kind of iconography of the Death Company with their red cross. There's some Blood Angel librarians. Of course, the Blood Angels are a very psychic-based chapter, so nice big section there on the librarians with more lovely banners. And again, Tech Marines, because you cannot take vehicles without Tech Marines. And here he is, Commander Dante. Again, this until a year ago, maybe even less than a year ago, this was the Dante model. And I mean, to be fair, it is a gorgeous model. This paint job is so good that it doesn't actually look that dated. He has now been updated, but again, a model that lasted almost 30 years. And there's old Corbulo, I don't know how you pronounce that. And then some lovely vehicles. Again, we've got another Dreadnought with a banner on, the Furioso Dreadnought. Again, we've got these old school vehicles which are now kind of been retconned as Great Crusade era vehicles. And all these symbols and iconography, which I actually love, the organization of the Legion. Even the Rhino had flags on it. So good. And here we have all the war gear cards. So in second edition, it was kind of still slightly RPG in that you could kit out your characters or your HQ choices. So you could really deck out your character with a bunch of cool stuff. And in fact, they included all the cards and here the kind of data cards for the different units. Really useful. I love using stuff like this. I think it makes pretty much any tabletop kind of game, like a skirmish game or a role-playing game, is made so much easier with cards. And the fact that they were not a separate thing, they were included right here in the Codex to be photocopied or even cut out, I suppose. Great, love that. And then we've got the army lists. Less to say about this stuff. Oh, you've got another great little section here about Lionel Johnson and Lehman Russ. A little story here where they fought, which is really cool. Oh, love this stuff. But yeah, other than the little side boxes, this stuff's probably not of much interest unless you actually plan on building a list to play second edition with. But it's all here. The other thing about these old codexes, I think it was until, 6th edition, they started making them hardback. When I think the paperback, the soft cover ones are just so much easier to use on the tabletop. Just flicking through to get to these pages, so much easier than with the hardbacks where you have to, but then hardbacks you can sell for more, I suppose, and they're more of a collector's item, and a lot of the stuff that Games Workshop is doing now is for collectors and like resale value, but I do miss the soft cover books. Yeah, so you just got loads of points, values, upgrades, stuff like that. Not a huge amount to say here. Oh, beautiful. Lovely piece of artwork of Azrael. Again, you can see the initials there. We know who that's by. Mark Gibbons again. Yeah, here we go. So you got the bearer of the sacred standard, and then you'd pick which standard you wanted to take for a different buff, depending on what kind of game or what kind of army you need. You give them a different standard to complement that. And then we have the Blood Angel army. Same again, not a lot to say here, unless you're planning on building a second edition Blood Angel army. Very cool. There's Dante. Another beautiful piece of artwork. Again, Mark Gibbons. That's so good. They're gothic. We've got this church in the background with the bats and the moon. It's so cool. Stylized so nicely. And then we get onto the next few pages. The next like 20 pages are all, it's like a little catalogue. So you've got the starter set and you've got a bunch of other codexes. We can review, I've got most of these. If you want to see these in another future video, let me know in the comments. We can look through any of these ones if you're interested. And then we get onto the mail order section. So here's the old Dante model, which like I said, was still available to buy only like a year ago. Same for Azrael. So back in the day before the internet, if you wanted any of these special mail order miniatures, you'd have to post a check with the order in off to Nottingham, and they would then send you the model back. And of course, different from today as well, you could buy all these parts individually. So you've got the Mephisto model, you can buy Mephisto as he is, but if you just want the sword for another model or for a conversion, you can just buy the sword. You know, you can just buy Dante's jump pack. Like I say, I started playing the game in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and my dad would just buy me stuff from the shop every now and then. I never was old enough to mail order stuff like this, but I would really like this if this was a feature today, if you could just order tiny bits for conversions and stuff. I think that's really cool. You know, this model breaks down into 4 pieces and you can order each piece individually. I don't know why Marnius Calgar is here. Get out of here, this isn't your codex. Whole bunch of chaplains, whole bunch of librarians. There's Deathwing. See, I mean, this is like 20 pages of catalogue, because without the internet, this is how you shop for these things. You read all the fluff about them, and then you go to the back of the book and you think, right, who am I going to buy? There's the Blood Angel Chaplain from the front cover. Looking great. Tech Marines, and then some generic Space Marines. And then some vehicles. You've got these old land speeders with these little guys sitting nice and neat. And there's the dreadnought. Again, look, you can buy all the pieces separately if you want. Just buy the weapons. You can even just buy the piece by piece. If you really want to do something interesting or you had a damaged piece, you just buy the lower body section. You've got all these dreadnought banners. Dreadnoughts do not come with banners anymore, but back here there are 4 different dreadnought banners that you could choose from. Dreadnought banner poles. And then you've got the upgrades. And then at the end, another full colour. Got this lovely photograph of a nice old school Warhammer 40,000 battle on a nice green meadow with a blue sky. The way war is supposed to be fought. So, there we have it. The Angels of Death Codex.
So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching and be sure to let me know in the comments what your favourite retro codex is. See you next time.